We've watched over the last month as protests in Seattle turned into an occupation, with police leaving the East Precinct building. That was June 8th. And then sadly, in the last 2 weeks, 2 people were shot and killed at CHOP or near CHOP. Joining us live now this morning is Seattle Police Chief Carmen. Chief Best, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you've been a very, very busy chief. Thank you for joining us here at KIRO 7. First, I want to talk to you this morning about yesterday's clearing of CHOP. How long had that been planned? You had a lot of people involved, of course, your crews, and then Bellevue PD, FBI, and various city crews. How long had that been in the works?
Well, first, good morning, Michelle, and thanks once again for having me here this morning. You know, we did have to go into some extensive planning, but as you know, the situation at that area had devolved to the point that we needed to move in quickly and efficiently, that is, and we also recognized that we were going to need to complete the mission to clear out the area. It was not a small project or process, as the area was quite extensive, 7 full blocks. We cleared it out, and we spent a couple days in the planning.
And Chief Best, you have been frustrated, as you've told us during an interview here at KIRO 7, and yesterday called what happened at CHOP over the last weeks unacceptable. Was there a turning point for you as chief where you said, we gotta get this done and clear it out?
Well, honestly, Michelle, for some time I've been wanting to clear it out, but we did need to have the legal authority to do so. I'm very grateful that the mayor and the city attorney's office came up with a good proclamation that allowed us to be able to go in and lawfully and legally clear out the area.
And Chief, how is morale? Maybe if you could speak before the clear out and then yesterday. You know, we did see you inside the East Precinct, back in that building where you worked at one point.
That's right.
Early in your career, being greeted by your officers. So how was morale before, and then compare it to now that you're back in there?
Well, I can tell you the officers coming back into the precinct were really jubilant about being back in the area, back in the building. They certainly wanted to be back there. For me anyway, it was really important, not only for officer morale, but because we have a job to do. You know, we weren't able to respond to calls for service efficiently or effectively as we were before. So I was grateful to be back in that building and to start that process to bring some normalcy to the neighborhood. We spoke to many of the residents who came out to thank us for being there and for helping clear out the area so that they can have some normalcy in their lives.
And you know, Chief Best, over the weeks here since the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, we have heard a lot of talk about reimagining police. I've heard you say it several times, Mayor Durkan as well. What does that look like to you? And we know the Black Lives Matter movement is very important to you. You've told us here on KIRO 7, as a woman of color, to you, your family members, your friends, a very important movement. But what does this reimagining police look like to you as chief?
Well, Michelle, it's a great question. You know, the Seattle Police Department has spent a lot of time on the consent decree. We've done all of the bureaucratic things that we need to do in terms of de-escalation, training, crisis intervention, and all the reform efforts that people are calling for. We're way ahead. But when we talk about re-envisioning how the police department runs, we really are talking about making sure that we have the connection to the community and that they're able to work with us and really lead the process. What it means to me is that the expectations generally of the people we're serving are being met. So that they don't feel the need to have to come out and demonstrate on issues of fairness and equity and systemic racism.
And Chief, you mentioned right there that connection to the community. I know Mayor Jenny Durkan yesterday afternoon in her news conference, which you were a part of, talked about setting up a community space inside the East Precinct. How do you see that playing out? Do you think that really is a viable option?
I do think it's a viable option. If we had our utopia, people would recognize that the police department is a part of the community. We're a part of the fabric of the community. We want to make sure that we're all integrated and working together to meet public expectations. So with that being said, that means that we're going to have to connect. We're going to have mutual ground, shared space. All of those things can move us forward and advance us in re-envisioning how policing looks.
And Chief Best, I know you're aware of possible Zone 2 near City Hall, maybe a new CHOP zone. How will this be handled different as you move forward if this does happen and a new CHOP zone is set up at City Hall?
Well, Michelle, those are really great questions. There's a lot of rumors about what may or may not happen. When it comes to demonstrations generally, I can tell you we will meet peace with peace. We will react to what we're presented with. We're hopeful that people will, make sure that it's peaceful and that there's no need to devolve back to the situation that we had before.
And Chief Best, I know you've talked about the homicides there and the assaults and the rapes within the Capitol Hill community during these last few weeks. You've been very frustrated, but is there something that you maybe can say this morning that you think personally came out positively from that movement out of CHOP?
Well, it certainly did highlight the fact that there are some frustrations, that there's some more conversation that needs to occur about the future of policing in the city, the connection to particularly young people and what they expect and what they want to see. And so we are open to that, and we want to make sure that we are following up on those issues. It's very important that all voices, that is, are heard.
All right, Police Chief Carmen Best with Seattle Police. You have been very busy. We appreciate your time this morning.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.